And live from Downing Street, it's the one and only hero of daytime TV. It's Philip Schofield for our Not Breaking News today. Hello, everyone. And why is it not breaking news? Well, it's not breaking news because it's about the history of some of the pathogens that exist and what we've done to minimize their impact. So, everyone, hope you're all right. Philip's put on this Mr. Ripley mask, as he would do for this presentation. So the not breaking news is we've got some pathogens here. Remember, pathogens are microbes that cause disease, okay? So pathogens. And here we've got the Black Plague. Ooh, ooh, ooh. I'll try to get in front of the camera. So this here, look, it's got, I know I said we don't try and give microbes and pathogens personalities and treat them like conscious beings, but this one is, so just ignore that part of it. So this is the Black Death. It was sometimes called pestilence, and there have been numerous outbreaks across history of, I'm reading from my notes here because there's a lot to remember. And the first sighting of the Black Death was in 1347. So quite a long time ago there, nearly 700 years ago. And over the next 5 years, by 1952, 25 million people in Europe had been killed by this thing here. Right now, sometimes it's called the bubonic plague, and there are still some outbreaks of this across the world, but we've pretty much eradicated it. Thanks to the use of antibiotics, and we'll look at antibiotic resistance in a future lesson. And I know I've already had a quick look at that with some people in the triple class. So the Black Death was passed on by mites that lived on rats. So what would happen is the rats would be the vector, remember that, and they would jump off the rats onto the people, and when they bit the people, this would get inside their blood, so that's the Black Death. So because it's a bacteria, we can use antibiotics once they were found, once they were discovered, to be able to combat this. So the antibiotics are responsible for killing the bacteria. What they do is they break down the cell wall that exists around the bacteria, which means that it can't survive. So antibiotics are great, but one of the ways that we most successfully tackled Black Death, the bubonic plague, is by like cleaning up towns and cities. So people in the times when the Black Death were around used to like stick their bum out the window and poo on the outside street. They used to poo in the street and wee in the street, and there was just rubbish and filth everywhere. And if you watch Doctor Who, you never, I love Doctor Who, but you never see, if I got Doctor Who here, no I haven't, you never see Doctor Who when she or he travels back in time. You never see them go, oh, that's absolutely stinks. But in the 1300s, it would have smelled disgusting because there was filth in the streets and rubbish, and people weren't very hygienic. So what happens is it used to be a case of rats would then become a problem, and the rats brought the ticks, and the ticks brought the Black Death, and the Black Death caused millions and millions of deaths. So the way that we prevent bubonic plague is we prevent it through hygiene and sanitation. And if people do get a case of this, then what happens is we treat them with antibiotics. So Black Death gone. Right, next one. This is smallpox, okay? Now, smallpox, it's got a green coat, but you can't see it because of the... Look, it's got a green... Oh, it's spooky that, isn't it? Watch this. Ready? Ooh. Look, I'll put it there. So, smallpox is a virus that causes and has caused massive numbers of death across the planet. And it was first discovered in ancient Egypt. It was one of the first recognized diseases that caused significant number of deaths. There are different versions of smallpox, and they are very deadly and can also cause, in the people who survive, long-term health effects. So because it's caused by a virus, antibiotics don't work, so there's no point in taking them. But the way that we've managed to eradicate smallpox is through a global vaccine program. So I'm going to talk more about this in a future lesson, because it's like absolutely fascinating how they managed to completely eradicate smallpox across the globe, which obviously has some considerations for how we handle coronavirus as well. But there are very, 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 very few outbreaks of smallpox within the last 50 years, within the last 30, 40 years. And now the only samples that we know that exist are in 2 institutions locked in bio safety level 5 labs, in one in Russia and one in America. But we've eradicated that through the use of vaccines. So fascinating. So I shall take my smallpox eye patch off and we will talk about vaccines a bit later on. So off you go, smallpox. The next one that we have here is salmonella. So salmonella, right, is a bacteria, and these bits here represent the flagella, which are little bits, a bit like a little tail that the bacteria has, and it helps it to move it around. So you can imagine that swimming around in your digestive system. What happens is the salmonella can also cause death, but it can cause serious, look, it's got like, it's almost like its nose, but remember, these things are not conscious. It doesn't go around sniffing things, but actually it's just a flagella. I think it's just there to make it look nice. But these bacteria cause food poisoning, and you can get salmonella if through underprepared food or rotten food, and it attacks your digestive system, and it can cause you to become extremely unwell. So diarrhea, for example, is a major issue. And when we look at this in more detail later on, you'll find out that actually diarrhea is one of the leading causes of death in the developing world, because it can't be treated. The symptoms can't be treated, and the disease itself isn't treated, so it can be fatal. But the way that we prevent salmonella from spreading, or from you catching salmonella, is through the proper, correct preparation of food, and food hygiene, and personal hygiene as well. So things like washing hands and all of that kind of stuff. And that's why in microwave meals, they tell you to make sure that it's piping hot throughout. And I'm rubbish at this, or I used to be rubbish at this. Piping hot throughout, because what that does is the heat from the microwave will kill all of the bacteria like these. And if it's not piping hot all the way through, there's a chance that you might find this in that center bit of chicken that's like just a little bit warm. Yeah, so want to be careful with that. So that's salmonella. Still a problem in the world. So what we'll do is we'll not throw it away. We'll just place it ever so nicely here. Next one that we have is influenza. So the flu and COVID would be an example of influenza, and we'll talk loads about COVID and flu last time, so we won't spend too much time on it today. But we do know that the 1918 flu pandemic killed 40% of the world's population. So that's one of the reasons why we're pretty concerned about coronavirus at the minute, which is quite fitting, because we are talking about staying alert, controlling the virus and saving lives. And Philip Schofield would back me up on this. So what we need to do is we need to enact all of the government recommendations around social distancing and hygiene to prevent the spread of this. And the last one today is this little thing here, which has also got a flagella. This is cholera. And cholera is a waterborne bacteria, so it's spread through dirty water, and it can cause major life-threatening diarrhea. I know that sounds a bit daft, but love diarrhea. But also increases in blood pressure, massive increases in blood pressure that can also be fatal. Fatal is like a Shakespeare thing, so we'll not talk about that. But what we do is cholera can be eradicated through good quality hygiene and also through cleaning water. So all the water that we drink that comes from our tap goes through a sanitation process, a cleansing process, and a purifying process to make sure that things like cholera are removed. And Jon Snow, which is like one of the coolest names ever, like out of Game of Thrones, but not that Jon Snow. Jon Snow was a scientist down in London who first recognized the link between a cholera outbreak in London that was killing people, and the drinking water was coming from, in those days, he didn't have inside plumbing. There was fountains in the street, and you would go along and you'd fill up your bucket or you'd fill up your bedpan or something like that. And what he did was he found out that the water that was coming in through this particular pump was contaminated, and that's why people in a certain area of London were becoming ill, and quite a few were dying with cholera. And so he worked that out, and the pump, Snow's pump, is still in London today, but it's obviously clean. So cholera still a problem across the world. It attacks the lining of the small intestine, and that can be treated with antibiotics. But prevention is better than cure, as my grandma used to say. So we'll pop that down there. But yeah, prevention's better than cure, because trying to prevent yourself from getting ill is obviously better than feeling ill and then having to try and treat it. Yeah. So the only other thing on today's not breaking news is the fact that we talk about bacteria all of the time, and we consider bacteria to just be bad for us, and actually lots of bacteria are bad for us. They're pathogens, but lots of bacteria aren't pathogens, and lots of bacteria are absolutely harmless. So bacteria are everywhere around us, and they're harmless, and they don't cause effects. It's only certain kinds, like our friend here, and our friend here, and our friend here. These are the ones that can cause, I need to know the difference between left and right when I'm doing this. So these are the ones, are the kinds of ones that can cause problems. And some bacteria are really useful for us. So if we think about a Yakult milk drink, for example, other milk drinks are available. If we think about a Yakult milk drink or something like that that contains friendly bacteria, helpful bacteria, what they do is they help your digestive system. So they're not doing it because they want to be helpful or because they're being paid to be helpful. What they do is they help us break down our food because they're trying to get the nutrients. I'm talking like personified, but what they do is they break down some of our food to extract nutrients, and that actually assists us because some of those nutrients aren't absorbed by the bacteria and we can absorb them ourselves. So that's why when we talk about things like Yakult and other milk drinks are available, we are talking about the fact that they can be useful and help with digestion, and also we can use them in other ways through like helping us to produce insulin for people who are diabetic, for example, and we look at that in greater detail in year 11. But that was today's breaking not breaking news, brought to you live-ish from Downing Street. Come back to Teams and I will see you there. Thank you for listening, year 10, and on behalf of Philip Schofield and Fern Cotton, have a great day.